This city in the Far East was once one of the most secret places in the world, housing one of the world's most powerful military centers. And no, I'm not talking about North Korea or even some city in China. This is Vladivostok, the most far eastern city of the Russian Federation, situated on the eastern Bosphorus Strait near the Sea of Japan. This past week, the city played host to the Eastern Economic Forum, where leaders from all over the Far East gathered together to discuss and network upwards of nearly 3,000 investment projects throughout the region. The forum is the fruit of 10 years of the Russian Federation's deliberate and intentional turn to the east. Starting around 2012, around the time of his third campaign for the presidential office, Vladimir Putin's speeches took a very stark civilizational turn. Gone were any references to joining up with the West and finding Russia's place in an increasingly globalized world. Instead, Putin's meta-theme became one involving Russia finding itself in a great civilizational struggle, a struggle with a decadent, decaying, and dying West. As such, it was imperative for Russia to revive her ancient customs and traditions that have guided the Russian people for 1,000 years and promised to do so for the next 1,000. And it's imperative for Russia to align itself with the powers that comprise what's called a multipolar world, a world with a number of political and economic powers rather than just one dominated by the globalist West. And so this civilizational turn has ever since involved a deliberate turn to the east, where Russia would assume its traditional role as Eurasia, the political, economic, and cultural bridge between the West and the East. Hence the Eastern Economic Forum, the place where Russian economic interests are currently recalibrating almost entirely around the Far East. The geopolitical analyst Pepe Escobar, who attended the forum, noted a radically conspicuous theme throughout the summit. All the major political and economic players in attendance were dedicated to de-Westernizing the whole of the East. It's not coincidental that this forum was happening within earshot of India's debate over a possible name change. The government there is considering a resolution to change their name from India, which was the name given to them by British colonists based on their proximity to the Hindu Valley. They're debating changing their national identity to the far more ancient name of Bharat. Now, the important point here is that this deliberate de-Westernization is happening all throughout Asia and the East. It's in response to what Easterners often refer to as West-toxification. How's that for $1 million word, right? West-toxification. Scholars have more and more recognized that the anti-cultural, anti-traditional processes of Western globalization has provoked mass re-traditionalized backlashes among populations. And that, according to Pepe, is exactly what we saw in Vladivostok just last week. He was profoundly struck by how entirely absent Western power and interest were from this international gathering involving virtually every Eastern nation. In other words, there was an enormous sense that a multipolar world order really isn't emerging. It's already here. It's just now just a matter of setting up the right kind of international infrastructure. But the poles, the political and economic power centers, they're fully in place. And perhaps nothing emblemized that more than the surprise visit of perhaps the single most elusive world leader on Earth. Gang, if you've not yet secured the deed to your home, you need to click on that link below right now and protect yourself and your loved ones. I was shocked when I found out how easy it is to just access the deed to my home, and not just access it, but actually change it. The deed to your home is the only document that proves you own it. But the problem is that the deeds to all our homes are now online, and criminals are free to find the deed, forge your signature, refile as the new owner of your home, take out tons of loans using your home's equity, and then stick you with all the debt. But that's where our good friends over at Home Title Lock come in. Gang, they're absolutely amazing. Home Title Lock gives you the peace of mind that the deed to your home is absolutely and completely 24/7 protected. Click on that link below right now. Use promo code TurleyTalks, and all you got to do is just enter your address for a no-obligation home title scan to see if you've already been a victim of deed theft. That's a $100 value, absolutely, totally free with my promo code TurleyTalks. Okay, don't wait for the worst to happen, only to regret you didn't do something about it when you could have. Do what I've done. Do what countless patriots have done. Click on that link below right now and secure your home today. The Eastern Economic Forum, in effect, climaxed with the arrival of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. It was the first international trip in years since 2019, and it underscored the reality of the new multipolar world rising in the East. While the Western media was transfixed over the possibility of illegal weapons transfers from North Korea to Russia, the reality of what 90% of the rest of the world was focused on was the emergence of an economic union between the three poles of Russia, China, and North Korea. China's been under enormous pressure from the U.S. State Department to exert control over North Korea, a pressure that China has categorically rejected, and instead asserts a mutual friendship of collaborative spirit with North Korea, again signaling their determination to chart their own course in an increasingly multipolar world. In terms of multipolar infrastructure, we look like we're going to be seeing bilateral trade agreements between North Korea and a number of member nations of the Asian Economic Union, if not the Union itself. The agreements could pave the way for investments, loans, grants, and productive collaboration among the various Eastern nations, which would in effect nullify any lasting impact of American sanctions on North Korean trade. Again, those sanctions, those American sanctions, are byproducts of a unipolar world where the State Department and the IMF and the WTO basically call the shots for international trade. Those days are over. In fact, Kim Jong-un's visit to Vladivostok signals North Korea most likely entering into the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO, with the support of Russia and China, which would further integrate North Korea into this emerging multipolar world order. In other words, North Korea is fast turning from a renegade nation, isolated by the international community, to a highly relevant nation, embraced by and assimilated into the new emerging international community. Now, none of this should be seen as fanfare on my part for North Korea or Kim Jong-un or anything like that. Instead, what I hope to communicate is just how much the world really is changing right before our very eyes. The non-Western world really is moving beyond the West, seeing our leaders as increasingly decrepit and decaying. They see the future as happening in what scholars call the global frontier, the global South, the emerging nations that are far more nationalist, populist, traditionalist, that embrace culture, custom, and religion as ironically the way forward. That world was on full display this past week in Eastern Russia, a world that's just beginning. Are you ready to join the resistance? Because I'm leading a group of dedicated, courageous patriots who can lead a spearhead into the heart of the secular globalist establishment. We punished Bud Light and Target, driven CNN and the legacy media to near bankruptcy, forced BlackRock to backtrack on ESG, and now we're seeing our conservative-dominated Supreme Court ending affirmative action and protecting religious liberty. In my Insiders Club, I show you concrete steps to take locally and online that will only keep this mass uprising going until the battle is won. Don't wait. Click the link in my description below and join my Courageous Patriots Insiders Club today.